Oh, you got me? All right. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفر ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Alhamdulillah, we're back again dealing with our complete Arabic course. We've decided not to unturn every rock in the road to learning Arabic and to complete our understanding from beginning to end in a stair-step manner. We're on our quiz. I think this is our third quiz. I can't remember. Don't worry about the number. This is a quiz. Every week we have a quiz. We've already collected the papers. These are the questions. The first question is, how many sciences are there in Arabic? I dropped the word many. So it says, how many sciences are there in Arabic? Someone yell out the answer, Sister Jamila.
13.
There are 13 sciences amongst the sciences of Arabic. Yo. Lot of. There's 28. There's 28 in the series of all the classes we gave, but this is actually only like the third class since Ramadan. So I don't know how we number it. Right? Anybody know? Fourth for the fifth class. Fifth class.
22nd was after
the first one, the 22nd. That's one is he gave us the introduction actually.
Right. So this is the fifth class or the fourth class?
This 22, 23.
Okay.
6 or 7.
Okay. Well, six.
This is the sixth class.
Sixth class. Well, alhamdulillah. Dars al-Sadis. The sixth class. Alhamdulillah. Anyway, the point here is that there are 13 sciences amongst the sciences of Arabic. Next, we want to know how many of those sciences are tied to poetry. Somebody yell it out.
2.
No, that is wrong. 3. Thank you. There are 3 sciences. That is the number. 3 sciences tied to poetry. It's very important that you note that there are 13 sciences in Arabic. 3 of them are tied to poetry. Okay? Now, name those sciences from the sciences of Arabic that are tied to poetry. You have your papers in front of you. There's Qardu Shi'r, Arudu, Qawafi. All right, now that we have those, where's my pen? Oh, here it goes. Okay. You said Arudu Shi'r, Qardu Shi'r. Qardu Shi'r. Then you have Arud, right? Then you have Qawafi. Now, give me the definition of Qardu Shi'r.
16 scale of the poetry.
What is, I gave you in front of you, read it.
Versification.
The what?
Versification.
Which is the
I can't understand. The verse, Qardu Shi'r, the art of versification. What does that mean? The art of versification. It means the whole hay'ah, the whole, how do you say? The whole environment or air of it is poetic. Okay, some poetry doesn't rhyme. But it's still considered poetry because it makes you reflect. It's a peaceful thought. It makes you stop and say, wow, subhanallah. That's Qardu Shi'r. That aspect of it is considered Qardu Shi'r. Okay? Now, we know versification doesn't mean that it always rhymes. However, that's in English. In Arabic, it does. In Arabic, it always rhymes. What does urud mean? Somebody, you got your book in front of you, or somebody, call it out.
16 scale.
What is it called?
The rules.
The rules of the 16 scales. Woo, that's nice. Subhanallah. I'll give you one. We're going to call it Mustaf'ilun, my favorite. This one is the one that's used the most, 3 times. This is one of the scales. Mustaf'ilun, 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 Mustaf'ilun. That's a scale. Okay? Mustaf'ilun. This is supposed to be tanween, so it goes like that. So every place there's a sukoon, that's a place in the poem, in the rhyme, that there has to be a sukoon. So it would be qala. You see that? It's moving here. It's a sukoon. This is sukoon. And ta would be the la. And you have to follow the line like that. It's very hard, right? To make a poem following every 3 times. Mustaf'ilun, mustaf'ilun, mustaf'ilun. Qala ibn Abu wasmuhu Muhammadu. Mustaf'ilun, mustaf'ilun, mustaf'ilun. Okay? So this is one of the scales. And there's 16 scales. But this is the one you see the most. So get used to it. Everybody say, mustaf'ilun, mustaf'ilun, mustaf'ilun. Mustaf'ilun, mustaf'ilun, mustaf'ilun. And then you learn that one over and over and over again. You'll get to enjoy it. And you'll listen to a rhyme or a poem and say, oh, it's on this scale. It's on that scale. And then you say, this is wrong. Can't do that. Because you've gotten sensitive to it. You know the science of and the rules of the 16 scales. Right? We'll get there. There's some time. What's the last one? Qawafi. What is it?
Qawafi, the end letter rhyme.
Okay. So this is the rhyme. This is the rhythm. This is the rhythm. This is the rhythm, right? And this is the rhyme. How do you write rhyme? Rhyme. Okay? Actually, this is the rhythm. Should take this out. This is the rhythm. And this is the rhyme. Okay? The rhythm is mustaf'ilun, mustaf'ilun, mustaf'ilun. And the rhyme is the end letter. The end letter ending with, and here the last letter has to rhyme. Like we said, Qala ibn Abu wasmuhu Muhammadu. Allah fi kulli al-umuri Ahmadu. Musalliyan ala Rasul al-Muntaqa. Wa alihi wa sahbihi dhawit tuqa. See, the rhyme, that last letter is rhyming. Right? That's the rhyme. That's called qawafi. We see it? See, we're taking the knowledge that we have and we're putting it into some application that we can actually see. That's the purpose of this. It's not just to memorize. There are 13 sciences in the sciences of Arabic. And they are, and this, that, and the other thing. But what does that mean? Well, well, you have to, No. It has some reason, some rhyming. We may not get to it yet, but you need to know what it is. So you can articulate and hope to get there. Okay? And the rhyme is the rhyme is the end letter. The end letter. Okay? The end letter has to rhyme. And there's different styles. We named one. We'll go on. Is everybody cool with that? Yes. Everybody understand that a little bit better? Yes. Next week on your quiz, you will be asked similar questions about balagha. Okay? So you will have to know. Alaykum assalam. Mursad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Kayf halik? Labas. Labas. Alhamdulillah. So, be ready. Be ready. Let's get this off the board. Remember, this is not just for show. The sciences of Arabic touch on almost every science you're going to deal with if you're going to be a talib al-ilm and learn anything in this deen. You want to study the Quran, you need to know Arabic. I mean, know it. And knowing it is not what people think. Knowing how to say, my name is Abu Tawba, and I'm from Brooklyn. That's not knowing Arabic. That's just speaking, conversational Arabic. We were thinking about doing a class on that. That's not really our objective here. Our objective here is to master Arabic. That's our intention. When we talk about Arabic, what we're doing here is not just giving you a master's degree. Some of you, if you get real good, you get a PhD in this thing. And it's not that hard. Everything you do that is to an expertise will have some level of difficulty. But it's not outside of the realm of reality. Okay? Let's get this thing on the board. You guys, first thing you have to do is to recite to him the first paragraph, the first chapter in Al-Ajrumiyah. You listen to him, you tell him where his mistakes are. I'm listening to both. Turn around, face each other, knee to knee. Lift, turn. You guys, let's get on the board. Let's get our work done. Okay? Get closer, guys, so you don't have to yell. You recite to him. The way it goes is like this. You're learning adab. The adab is this. You sit close to your ustad or your colleague till your knees touch each other. After that, you start off with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa sallallahu ala rasulihil kareem, or something like that. Praising Allah and sending blessings on His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you recite to him Bismillah again, and you start to recite the poem. Okay, the first paragraph. After you're finished, then he will say if you made a mistake or something like that. If you disagree, you ask me immediately. Then he recites it to you, and you hear if he made a mistake in the different styles of how it's recited correctly from both of you. At the next point, you have another part of the lesson which I'll be listening to also. Okay? And at the same time, you'll have to pay attention to this lesson. All right. That's for the advanced students. For everybody else who's normal, we're over here. We're doing King Abu Jad. Sabiqan, previously on Abu Tawba's class, we had dealt with the introduction, right? The introduction to this whole text was with Basmalah, walhamdulillah, then blessings on the Prophet. I'll have my say with you today concerning orthographics. And what is orthographics?
Big word for the alphabet.
Big word for alphabet. Come on, let's regurgitate. It's just a big word for the alphabet. Okay? So, what about the alphabet? Descriptions of their numerals, points of articulation. As each letter comes, as it does, it has its own sensation. As it comes up the mouth, as it comes out the mouth, as it goes through the teeth or comes off the lips, it has its own sensation. And this sensation is a shifa, if said correctly. Naam. But let him start right there. So, having done that, do I have any questions about that? Do I have any questions about that? If there are no questions about... Yes, no, maybe? If there are no questions about that, then we are moving on to King Abu Jad. We had previously spoke that the alphabet was derived from a story of old where the kings, 6 greedy, selfish kings, wanted everything for themselves and didn't want to share anything. And from among the things they didn't want to share was the shade of the clouds. And so in that regard, they got under the cloud, and the cloud killed them. The Arabs then had a chance to use the names of these kings with some slight alteration, to come up with the alphabet. They're using the letters of these people's names. The first king's name is King Abu Jad. Say that. You lower it just a little bit, guys. King Abu Jad. Say again.
King Abu Jad.
And Abu Jad literally means what? Great-grandfather. The grandfather of my father is my great-grandfather. So that's an interesting point to note right there. Okay? Now, after this point, we go down and deal with Abu Jad. Because Abu Jad deals with the letters Alif, Ba, Jim, and Dal. What letters does it deal with?
Alif, Ba, Jim, Dal.
Louder, please.
Alif, Ba, Jim, Dal.
And we can see that mukawwanatun. We can see it being made up from the letters in his name. So now the first one is Alif. We'll deal with the poem. You've had it for at least a week. Let's deal with it on the board. Now Alif is the first of signs. It's makhraj, hard to find. And deep inside my mouth I find a Hamza lives inside. With idhar, yes, the Alif is itself and also Hamza. Well, Hamza is itself, not else. That's it, just Hamza, Hamza. Loud and strong while low restrained, opening sifat. The Alif comes along with mad, just following a fat. Or shows up at the ends of words right before they crash. Separates and demarcates to help the reader pass. While Hamza, as it seems to need a tad more of a sharh, it rides upon the alifun, the waw, and even ya. Shiddatun with jahrun, samtun istifal. Fathun describes alifun, and 1, its numeral. Let's break this down. Go back to the top, please. Right there. Okay. Let me stop you guys for a second. Pay attention here for a few moments with us, okay? Here. Now, Alif is the first of signs. What this line means, and you can write, but you must know this. I will ask you to explain it to me. It's not enough that you memorize this. Each one, what? Teach one. That's real. We're not talking rhetorically. Each one has to teach one. Or close your book, turn off the CD, and go home. You know? Now, Alif is the first of signs. What that line means is that Alif is the first letter. What does that line mean? Okay, that's what was intended with that line. And we need to know the first. So it's the first of signs. Why does he call it a sign? It's called a sign because every letter is just a sign. Like every word is just a label for something else. The letter is just a graphic visualization of the sound that you have off your tongue. That's all it is. So it's an alama or a sign. I'm getting fancy now. Jazakallah khair, barakallah feek. So alif is the first sign. It's makhraj, hard to find. Now he says here it's makhraj, hard to find. What is a makhraj? How many types are there? There are two types of makhraj. What are they? Haqiqi wa ghayru haqiqi. Meaning a literal makhraj. A makhraj is a point of articulation or a point of enunciation. It literally, if you want to know, is the place where the sound is born. The place where the sound pops out. Say pop. You start it with that sound, that point of articulation, and you end it with it. That's why I like that word. Pop. You see how your lips came together? And you end it with your lips coming together because of the way of the word. That would be considered the makhraj. Now I said there's two types of makhraj. A makhraj that is literal, like the letter P in pop, and a makhraj that is not literal. That is, you can't put your finger on it. Put your finger on the place of articulation of P. Now say ah. Now put your finger on the place of articulation of ah. It's impossible unless you got with your hair all in your mouth, which wouldn't be becoming, right? Why? Because its makhraj is hard to find. Alif has the type of makhraj that is not one that you can put your finger on. Why? And deep inside my mouth, it's somewhere in the mouth here, the makhraj. Everybody say it's there somewhere, right? Now we go to another point. And deep inside my mouth, I find a hamza lives inside. Say that. And deep inside my mouth, I find a hamza lives inside. Focus here. What it means here is that hamza comes from the bottom of your throat. Okay? You could put it here, I guess. I'm sorry. It comes from the bottom. Say hamza faha'un. Say ah. Just like this. If you open your mouth, you sit up straight, roll your shoulders back, pick your head up and go ah. You'll feel the sound come straight out your mouth. Say ah. Ah. And control it. Don't let come out. Say ah. Do you feel it popping off in the bottom of your throat, almost close to your stomach? Then you're doing it right. That's where he says here, and deep inside my mouth, I find a hamza lives inside. Hamza is the deepest sound, the deepest letter in your throat. Mafhum? You'll see that again. With idhar, yes, the alif is itself and also hamza. What does it mean here? He means here, what are the things that we're looking for in this poem? Descriptions of their numerals. So we're looking for a sifat, right? The numerals, right? And the points of articulation, which is the makhraj, right? But the points of articulation, he said the points. There are 2 points. So there's a point of articulation from its makhraj perspective, and then there's a point of articulation when it's mixed up with other letters. That's what we call the tajweed rule. Okay? I'm sorry. I'll write tajweed in English. Or whatever we call this. Okay? So we're looking for the tajweed rule there, right? And we're also looking for some words in English that are similar to those sounds or exact to those sounds. So we say here, idhar is the tajweed rule for alif, or what we mean by this when we say alif, we mean also hamza. Because in actuality, idhar is not the tajweed rule for alif. What does alif mean? What does alif mean? Alif. What does it mean? It means itself and also hamza. So alif means itself, which is alif, right? And it also means hamza. But he said, while hamza is itself, not else, that's it, just hamza, hamza. Okay? So that means hamza is actually 2 types of hamzas. Hamza, hamza. All that is meant when we say this letter alif. Alif means itself. And alif also means hamza. But hamza, does hamza mean alif? No. Hamza means itself. That's it. Not else. Just hamza, hamza. And he mentions the Hamza for a number of points. In Arabic, there's a rule. It's in English too, but we learn all of this from Arabic. If you say something twice right after each other, that's ta'keed, that's emphasis. Also, the rule here is that Hamza is two. There's two types of Hamza. Hamzatul Qata'i and Hamzatul Wasli. And Hamzatul Wasli is the one that joins. And Hamzatul Qata'i is if you get stabbed, if you got cut, you say a-u-i. That's the ha-a, the u, and the e one. Okay? So Qat'i sounds like cut, right? So there we have it right there. It's just a little something, something. So while Hamza is, so Idhar is the tajweed rule for Hamza. Alif doesn't have that rule. Because Alif is a sound that's mud. That's elongation. It doesn't carry its own sound. Hamza carries its own sound. Hamza is in and of its own self, has its own rights, which is different from Alif. Is that understandable? Okay, let's move on. I need you to come up some, please. So while Hamza is itself, not else, that's it, just Hamza. Loud and strong while low restrained, opening sifat. What does he do here? He explains to you all the sifat. The sifat are the exact, the things that you need to describe and to pronounce the letter Alif or the sound Hamza. He does it in English only because this is the introductory poem. He will not do it again because he doesn't want to give you crutches. The ulama of the past and the present agree that if you learn something in Islam, you have to learn it in what language? Arabic is the wasila. Arabic is the via. Here what we're doing in English is we're using English to explain Arabic terminology. We're not stepping away from the necessity to learn these things in Arabic. We're not reinventing the wheel with new English terms, which would confuse the student. It's idhar. We don't have to make it no other thing. We just explain what idhar means. I'm not going to tell somebody, I'm somebody who worships Allah one and I follow the way of the... I say I'm Muslim. I'll make up a new term. How do you say Muslim in English? Muslim. Muslim. You know, or like the person, not Muslim or whatever they got to say. It's Muslim. Okay? So, our term is idhar. The letter is alif, not a. Okay? So, loud. It has to be loud. It has to be strong. We went over these sifat, didn't we? Yes. We went over these sifat in the beginning, so we don't have to go over it now. Do you see the importance of that lesson? That lesson preceded this one, all the sifat. So now when we talk about them, we're not talking about an abstract thing. We're talking about something that you can reflect on and you can see and know what it is, and you'll get better at reflecting and knowing on it by the time you get to the end of this poem. Insha'Allah. Okay? So, loud and strong while low restrained. Low is that istifat. The tongue is down, right? Ah. Everybody say ah. Where's your tongue? Low. You understand what we're talking about now? Restrained, you're not saying ah. You're restraining it. You have some self-respect. Ah. And you pull it back. Ah. You don't say ah. You say ah. You have to hold it, right? That's what that restraint is. Opening. What does opening mean? You open your mouth in a way that's like a doorway. You say ah. So your mouth goes up and down. Ah. Your mandible drops and your maxilla goes up. Ah. And for those technical people, that's your upper jaw goes up and your lower jaw goes down. Ah. And you don't go wide, you go up. Okay? Now, it says sifat. Now, here he puts that sifat at the end. What that means is that what he's just named, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are the sifat of alif. Do you understand that? Those are the sifat. Then he says, he's describing more about the alif. Alif is the longest poem. Why? Because alif has the most things dealing with it. Because it's dealing not just with itself, but it's dealing with Hamza. Okay? And not only that, alif is one of the 3 letters that is the letters of the hawa, the elongation letters. So it has a lot of different things happening with it. That's why this one is the longest. Then he goes, the alif comes along with mad when following a fath. What that means is that what I told you earlier, alif doesn't have its own sound. You can't put an alif there. It means what? Nobody. It just means that's the beginning of the letter. You would have to put a hamza or one of the 2 types of hamzas there. The Arabs do not start on a sukoon. What did I say? The Arabs do not start on a sukoon. And alif by itself is nothing but a letter that is maskoon, that has a sukoon over it. Hamza is the one that takes a vowel. So alif comes along with mad. It comes as elongation. Qala. Everybody say that. Qala. So you put qala. So it's the fatha is on the qaf. The alif has nothing. It's an elongation. Albeit a normal elongation, which is miqdar, very short, at qala. As opposed to qala, you say qala. You understand that? So that's what we mean here. It comes along with mad when following a fatha. That's a fatha here. The alif only comes after a fatha. What I say? The alif only comes after fatha. I'm giving you rules that are set in stone. That's simple. No one can come to you and say an alif comes after any other letter besides a fatha. Period, point blank, that's what it is. And if you learn these rules now, they'll think you're a genius when you get why? Because you recognize something. Now you'll see Hamza after different things, but note the difference between Hamza and alif. Okay? Be very meticulous. Be very meticulous. Do not be like those people who cannot think, who cannot become critical thinkers. And their knowledge does them no benefit because all they want to do is look around and see who else is saying the same thing and they say the same thing. No, you think, you use your knowledge. And your knowledge is that thing will make you understand and determine when something is praiseworthy and when something is depraiseworthy. Okay? So it's not here that we're just trying to learn things in an abstract form. We're trying to learn them to utilize them. We together? Alif only comes after a fatha, period. Or it shows up at the ends of words right before they crash. Let me develop a principle here. The principle here is when I give you a rule, that's the rule. Then afterwards you memorize the exceptions. Okay? You understand that? No. So that is the rule. The rule is that alif comes after mad. The exception are two. The exceptions are two. Or shows up at the ends of words right before they crash. Everybody say amanu. Amanu. Now think in your mind. Amanu. After that wow, there's an alif. Qalu. Let me write it out for you. See this right here? Qalu. You see the alif at the end? Focus here, please. Qalu. This alif, and it usually has a little 5 over it. This is called the alif al-fariqa. What did I say? At this time, you don't really need to memorize that. But it's the alif that separates and demarcates to help the reader pass. It's the alif that lets you know. A lot of times the beginners are saying, how do I know it's the end of the word? I hear this question millions of times. Maybe, I'm exaggerating millions. But I've heard this letter for at least 20 years. Same question. How do I know the word is ended? This alif here separates and demarcates to help the reader pass. The other exception for that is when you say bin. Okay? Bin, and then you have an alif in between them. Like bil ladina. Okay? So that's the only exceptions to that rule that I gave you. Alright? So now you know the rule, and now you know the exceptions. Walk with it and utilize it. Okay? Walk with it, rule it. Now go up a little bit. I'm going to make sure of something, please. Just one space. Okay, so here it says right before they crash, right before the words crash into each other, it separates and demarcates to help the reader pass, while Hamza, as it seems to need a tad more of a sharh. Now here we're going to talk about Hamza. Hamza is different from alif. It is not alif. Hamza is different from alif. While Hamza, as it seems to need a tad more of a sharh, sharh means explanation. It rides upon the alif. Hamza, it rides upon the alif. The wow and even ya. So when you see a Hamza, it's riding on the alif. Or it's under the alif. And he didn't mean by this that it rides upon the alif and the wow and even ya to say that's it. No, this is just an example. The Hamza comes by itself sometimes. The Hamza comes after the Ya. Okay? So it's just to show you that for the most part, the Hamza comes riding on an alif. For the most part, it rides upon a waw. And for the most part, you see it sometimes when it says an even Ya, not as much as the alif in the waw, you'll see it on the Ya. Like imri'in, a person. Or you see amanu, all the time you see that one. And all the time iman. Or you see mu'min. You see it like this. And there's rules for that we'll get to later. There's rules for that. They're specific, and that's in Rasmi, how to write it out. For example, it'll always be over a waw if the sound preceding it is a dhamma or the letter itself is a dhamma. Like mu'min. The waw is there only because the preceding sound was a dhamma for the Hamza. Like you see like this. Mu'min. Then you put a Hamza there. For example, fu'ad. Fu'ad. See that? Fu'ad. Heart. So that's no problem. And that here is like that. Fu'ad. So you learn these different rules. And it's on the ya when it comes with a kasra. And if it precedes with a fatha, or it precedes the sentence, it's always on the alif, or it's in the middle of a sentence and it's preceded with an alif, like yas'aluna or sukoon. These rules are simple. They sound confusing right now, and I don't want to confuse you. It's something real easy. We got a poem for it. That you learn when you get to that point. And that's why we went over poetry, because the scholars use a lot of children poetry to help people learn these things. It's not just, something that I came up with. It's something that you find the ulama doing. Okay, so here we have it. While Hamza, as it seems to need a tad more of a sharh, it rides upon the alifun, the waw, and even ya. Shiddatun wa jahrun, samtun, istifal, fathun describes alifun and one is numeral. Here, it goes through the same sifat that it mentioned earlier. Shiddatun with jahrun, strong and loud. Samtun, istifal, restraint and being low. Fathun, opening, describes, instead of saying sifat, he wrote describes, almost mimicking verbatim that first line where it describes the sifat, and one, it's numeral. Every letter has a numeric value. Let's go to the next line. Let's go to the next word. Okay, the next word is ba. Ba is the second letter in the word abjad or abu jad, right? Ba. Jahrun, take the whole thing up, please. Jahrun wa shiddat, two sifatun shared by ba. Like istifal and infita, it's numeral ithnan. When ba, the letter shows up right after a noon, sakina or tanwiran, iqlabun is the rune, with qalqala resounding loud. Come on, let's hear it. With dalakun fly off the lips, its makhrij is the same. With dalakun resounding loud, the ba better shout its name. That's why it's lovely to do poetry, because when you mess up, you know something's wrong, something ain't right. Okay? So, go back to the beginning. Please go back to the beginning. Okay, here. Jahrun with shidda, two sifatun shared by ba. Here now he starts off with the sifat of the letter. What is jahrun? Loud. So here we have ba. Everybody say ibba. Ibba. You see your lips coming together? If you do it too weak or you put it too at the edge of your lips, it'll sound like a P. Okay? So it has to be on the inner part of your lips. Ibba. But not on the dakhliya, not all the way on the side. So it's like right between the outside and the inside. That middle part. Okay? And if you go on the outer side, it's P. Everybody say P. Ip. You see it's more closer to the edge? Now say ib. You see it's more in the middle. You feel the difference? Note it. You use these letters every day. You should exactly know where you're coming from with the sound. And he says, jahrun with shidda. What is shidda? Strength. So you come out with the ba, loud and strong. Okay? Two sifatun shared by ba. Why does he say shared by ba? Because these are two sifat that you find in alif. Loud and strong, while low restrained. Opening, sifat. The alif comes along with mud, just following a fat. So he says, jahrun with shidda, two sifatun shared by ba. Just like istifal and infital, it's numeral ithnan. Referring back to the last one. Okay? Just like istifal. Istifal is an alif, right? And infitah. What is infitah? Opening. It's fathun. Don't get stuck on stupid. What I mean by that? Some people get tied around the axle. Oh, you said fat. You said isfad. it's Arabic. It's Arabic. The point is still the same. They may say istifal, he may say suflan. It means it's saying get used to the root word to denote what is meant and what is implied by the meaning here. So jahrun and shidda, there are two sifat that are in bad that are also in alif. You will hear that again. Just like istifal, which is what? Being low. Say ib. Where's your tongue? Now infitah, you have to open your mouth. Say ib and don't open your mouth. You had to open it. If you don't open it, you won't get a sound. Because the sound of ba is born after separation. I mean, after being come together, then it has to separate. Say ib. You see that? You had to come together and then come apart. So learn where each sound, exactly how it comes. Because when you do this, you'll know what you're doing. And at first, it's kind of difficult because you're thinking about it a lot. But, as we talk about it in tajweed, it's one of the sciences that the ilm of it is never going to be separated from the amal. The knowledge of it can never be separated from the practicality or the action of it. Because you can't find somebody who says, well, I studied, I read all the books, yes, I listened to all the lectures, but have you ever done it? Well, then no, you don't know what you're talking. We don't even know if you know how to do it. Because here, the knowledge has to be followed by the practice of it with the same teachers. Till you get to completion. And that's why we don't have many teachers of tajweed from here. Because most of us, one of the things that we're lacking is consistency. To finish the lesson. So we go and study Quran with somebody, and then when that person goes back home, we're stuck. Where do I get my next lessons from? But since we didn't learn any rules, we got to start again at the beginning, which is depressing. It's discouraging. But if we learn some rules, then we can pick up and go pick up some more rules until we get to completion. So now we have some rules, inshallah. So we have jahrun and shiddatu sifatun shared by ba, like istifal and infitah. Infitah is open that mouth. It's numeral ifnan. What does ifnan mean? Two. So if alif is 1, ba is 2. Right? When ba, the letter shows up right after a noon. Now we're talking about its sifat and its and when sifatillaha wa mustahaq haqquhu wa mustahaqqahu. So the letter has a haqq. The haqq of the letter is what we previously mentioned. Now the mustahaq of a letter are those things tied to the letter. The rights of that letter when it's mixed up with another letter. The main letter that all the letters go around is noon. That is the main letter, or tanween. Okay? So he says here, when ba, the letter, shows up, like it's a personality, right after a noon, even if that noon is sakina means it's a noon that has a sukoon over it. It doesn't have a vowel sound. Say an, in, un. That's what we're talking about. Or tanweena. And he means by that tanweenan. But because of the knuckle of Warsh, and it's a thing in Arabic, you see, he moved the last sound to the next letter, playing with the language, which is allowed. So it says, if the tanween now is the sound of noon without writing the letter noon. Okay? So it's the same sound. So even if you hear the noon sound, sakina or tanweenan, iqlabun is the rule. What's the rule for ba? Iqlab. What is it? Iqlab. Not niqlab. That's just playing with the word iqlab. And iqlab is not the point of my class here to teach you what those words mean. Iqlab wa idhar, to a great definition. No, it's to familiarize yourself. When you go to tajweed, then you learn what iqlab is. Dabtan. Meticulously, exactly. Here you just learn that ba is tied to iqlab when you deal with that letter. Okay? With dhalaqu. Now he's giving you some other sifat. You know what he did? He separated the sifat that have adad, the ones that have opposites, from the ones that don't have opposites. In the beginning, he gave you the sifat that had opposites. Go back up to the beginning of the poem. He said, jahrun wa shiddatu sifatun shared by ba, like istifal and infitah. Those 4 have what? Now go down. Then he said dhalaqun. Dhalaqun is one of the sifat that we learned that does not have opposite. What does dhalaqun mean? What does it mean when we say a letter is dhalaqun? That means it's a type of letter. It's a type that comes off the tongue, or the edge of the tongue, or at the other side of the teeth. So it's not backed up, it's not bouncing like cough or calf. It has to come from the whole mouth bouncing the sound out. Where the ba, it's at the edges, boom, it flies out. Okay, so he says with dalakun, fly off the lips. So he's telling you the exact, and its makhraj is the same. What's the makhraj for ba then? The lips. Its makhraj is the same as the dalakun. It's the lips. So he's giving you the exact makhraj. Okay? Then he goes and says, with qalqala, resounding loud. What does resounding mean? Echo. That's what qalqala means. Qalqala means resound. You hear it twice. It blurts out its name. Because it's almost like saying ba twice. Say ib. Ain't it saying ba? It's blurting out its name. Ib. Like some words, letters in Arabic or English, you have W. You never say W. You say what? But here, ba is blurting out its name because it's resounding. It's echoing. Understand it? You ready to move on? Let's go. Come on, we got 2 more letters to go. Jeem. Everybody say jeem. 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 Some people find it difficult to pronounce this letter. Say adj. 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 So what the author did here, he turned it into like a brew. That you're making something here. He said mix qalqala with something, then a fathun istifal. He's throwing it in there. Add shidda to a jahrun and a jeemun has began. Okay? So he said mix these sifat together to get the jeem. Mix qalqala with something. What's qalqala? That resounding. So you say hajj. So automatically what you know, if there's qalqala, there's got to be shidda. Because you can't have that resound without some strength. Mix qalqala with somtum. Somtum is that restraint. Then a fathun istifal. You got to open your mouth. You got to keep your tongue flat. Say idj. It goes up and down, right? Idj. Say jeem. Hajj. You hear that? So it says mix qalqala with something, then a fathun istifal, add shidda to a jahrun. He's giving life to these things. Like you go catch a jahrun, it's a loud sound, right? Add some strength to some jahrun, and a jeemun has began. Why did he say began?
That's the part of articulation.
Well, because you don't complete the word just by giving the sifat. You have to get to the makhraj. You have to get the proper makhraj. If you don't have the makhraj, you can have all the sifat. You got another letter though. Okay? You got a different letter. So he says, go up please. Complete the jeemun using just the middle of the tongue. Then raise it up. Then raise that tongue up. Enunciate. Loud. The jeemun should be done. Now it should be finished. If you did all of that, so now he says, complete the jeemun. Now you got the sifat that you're going to have. You mix them all together. Now you complete the jeemun using just say idj. And when I say the middle of the tongue, I don't mean this way. I mean this way. Idj. You raise it up and enunciate. It's just like the ba. It has to touch the wetness of the tongue. I'm trying to be graphic. The wetness is my tongue. The wetness of my tongue has to go up and touch and then pull away. Say idj. Idj. The enunciation part is the birth of the sound. That's when you're pulling away. When he said raise it up, you haven't made the sound yet. Enunciate is the pulling away. And the jeemun should be done at that moment. So, let's mix qalqala with something, then some fathun istifal. Add shidda to that jahrun. And let's start that jeemun. Idj. Hajj. It should be closer to the front part. If this is the mouth, it should be closer to the front part on the upper part of the mouth. Say hajj. I keep saying that word over and over again because we're in Hajj season, right? So, keep it. Make sure you don't make it like a ch. Some people make it hajj. And they say the word incorrectly. This is because they're not completing the jeem. This mistake is a well-known mistake because they're not enunciating and coming back from it. Say hajj. You see how they slid off of it? Now say hajj. You got to give it its right and come off its right. Just back up a second. And then let the sound complete itself. That's how you get away from that. Do you understand? Now, then raise it up, enunciate the jim which should be done. The quantitative measure for the ikhfa in the jim. Now, we're being funny here. It says the quantitative measure. What does that mean, Mustafa?
Quantitative measure is
Somebody from Brooklyn, they got to break it down. Go ahead.
the measure of the word, or the measure of the letter.
What does that mean? Quantitative measure. What's that all about?
The quantity.
The quantity is what? It's a big word for the numeric value. Okay? Quantitative measure is the numeric value of the letter. What's the numeric value for the ikhfa? And he says for the ikhfa in the jim. Why does he say the ikhfa in the jim? He's pointing to what? That jim has a tajweed rule. What's the tajweed rule for ba? Iqlab. Iqlab is the tajweed rule for ba. What's the tajweed rule for alif? Idhar. Right? With idhar, yes, the alif is itself and also hamza. Right? So then with the ba, the quantitative method for the ikhfa in the jim is that it's equal to a 1 that's just been multiplied by 3. He's playing, not quantum physics, but pre-algebra here. Okay? Not giving you the answer. So he's saying that that's equal to a 1 that's just been multiplied by 3. What is 1 that's just been multiplied by 3? 3. So the numeric value of jim is 3. Right? And what's the numeric value of alif? 1. We got to do this stuff over and over again to the second nature. This is kid stuff to us, right? We should know this. So that when we go to tajweed and the sheikh says, Akhi, pronounce that ba. And he says, give me some iqlab. When you mix that ba with that noon. Min ba'd. You start coming like, you know what he's talking about. Taqallab al-harf, you flip the harf to something. Oh, let me get some ikhfa. In the jim, you say, I know it's ikhfa for the jim, but what does it mean? Then he could teach it to you. And you don't got to sit around and think about ikhfa for jim. You got that part. Now you're ready to step to the next level and understand what that means for jim when you're reciting the Quran. And you're ready. And this is something that we were talking about, matriculation, being ready for that level. Having the prerequisites. And not thinking, well, I don't need the prerequisites. I'm smart. I can figure it out. No. Even smart people need to follow the prerequisites. That's why we get excellence. That's how and the Prophet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us. Ya'muru bil ihsan. He ordered us to be excellent. Okay? So let's move on. We done with this letter? Okay, last letter. Dal. 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 Id. This is a punch. Id. It's a jab letter. It hits it and back. Id. You take your tongue like the elephant takes his nose and punches the lion. And he strikes and comes off. Right? That's how the elephant fights the lion when he goes after this thing. Boom. You do that to your top teeth. Idda. How do you do that? Now take the tip and upper part of that thing you call tongue. This part right here. The tip and the upper part. So it's this and here. The tip and the upper part, not the bottom part, of that thing you call tongue. And press it on your 2 buck teeth. For all you people that don't have 2 buck teeth, these are your 2 buck teeth for argumentative purposes. And place it on your gums. What that means is behind those 2 teeth, there's your gums. If these are the teeth, they're connected to the gums in the back. So your tongue and the upper part of the tongue is going to go like this, has to not only touch the teeth, but the upper part has to touch the gums. You see where it's coming? So you should know exactly. Say id. You feel it there? And if you want an error on anything, error on the gums. If you want an error on the... I think 1 or 2 people got that. If you want an error on anything, error on the... Okay, say id. 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 Get in the rule of jabbing. It's jab, right? You're jabbing that tongue on it. Say id. Think of your tongue like the nose, the khartoum of an elephant, and you're hitting that lion. Id. Id. So now take the tip and upper part of that thing you call tongue and press it on your 2 buck teeth and place it on your gums. Add jahrun with the shiddat, some fatun istifal, samtun and then qalqala. Add 4 and we have dal. That's not the end of it. Let's deal with this. What is jahrun? Loudness. What is shiddah? Strength. You see why we went over those letters, those sifat? You're starting to know them real well. Okay, then it says, what is fathun istifal? Go like this, smile. Say id. Now close your mouth. Say id. It can't do it. It don't sound right. You got to open your mouth. That's that fathun. And it's tifal. That tongue has to come from the bottom and go back to the bottom. Idda. You hear it? Came from the bottom and you saw your mouth. Everybody's mouth did one of these. Idda. You see it open and drop. Let that tongue, let it open, let the sound out and drop it. Okay? Idda. Louder. Because that's jahrun and shidda. Okay? Idda. Okay, then it says samtun. You want to make sure you don't say idda. You don't want to let no other sound out. That's that something. That's the restraint. You got to remember what you're doing. You're only letting the id out. Everything else, hold it in your nose. Hold it in the back of your throat. Id. You hear it? You're holding it. Restrain it. That's what something is. And then qalqala is when you say, Qul huwallahu ahad. Say it. Qul huwallahu ahad. Ahad. That's that qalqala. It's banging. But don't say ahad. That's not, no restraint, no something. You went too far. Ahad. You hear him holding it? I hold it here. I hold my air. Ahad. I can't hear you. That last part has to come. If you get on that teeth, it's going to sound like a T. It's going to say ahad. It's not ahad. It's ahad. That's when I said if you air on the gums. Because it's going to come out as that del sound. You have to open your mouth when you do it too. You can't give up at the end of a word. They used to say, alaykum awakhir al-kalima. Be aware at the last part of the letters or the last part of the word. Don't veer out. Qul huwallahu ahad. You just fade to black. No, it's not over till it's over. Ahad. Ahad. Okay, you hear it bouncing? Okay, then it says, but when reciting Al-Quran, a rule you must adhere. When the del comes after an, ikhfa'u must be there. Now it's giving you the rule again. What does he mean when he says an?
Tanween.
He means tanween or noon as-sakina. Right? So again, we're talking about this noon and this tanween. All the rules of tajweed, not all of them, astaghfirullahi al-azim. Majority of the rules of tajweed surround, or the beginning rules of tajweed for the beginner surround the noon as-sakina or tanween. So that's what we're finding here. Del, when it comes after an, ikhfa'u must be there. So what's the tajweed rule for del? Ikhfa. 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 Same as what? Same as jim. Same as jim. Is it the same as alif?
No.
Is it the same as ba?
No.
What's ba? Iqlab. So aqulu qawli hada wa astaghfirullah li. That's all we're doing today. Next week we'll do hawaz. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayk. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Okay, let's hear it, guys.